want to tell you a story. It is a story about a man who lived a long time ago. Some called him a troublemaker because he disturbed the status quo. If he were around today, he would probably be called a radical, a revolutionary, a malcontent, a thorn in the side of the establishment.
Praise and glory be to God, the cherisher, sustainer, and king of the worlds, and peace and blessings be upon his noble prophets and messengers. Now, brothers and sisters, I want to talk to you about a subject which brings grief to my heart and makes my soul cry. And that subject is none other than the Danish cartoons. And I, along with millions of other people, are in pain. Why? Because the man they describe is not the Muhammad that we know. The compassionate, merciful, loving, and trustworthy soul that we're familiar with. And for some odd reason, brothers and sisters, it has become this fashionable trend to insult this beloved messenger of God, all in the name of freedom of speech. And I'm not here today to talk to you about freedom of speech and whether it's okay to insult people and make them feel bad and offend their loved ones and what they consider to be sacred. No. Then what am I here to talk about? You see, brothers and sisters, I had a friend in university, a devout Christian friend of mine, who used to wear a bracelet on his wrist. And on this bracelet were written the words, "What would Jesus do?" And whenever he was confused, whenever he didn't know what to do, he would look at this bracelet and ask himself, what would Jesus do in my situation? And the brother would act accordingly. And so in light of this praiseworthy practice, I invite myself and you to look at the Muslim version of this bracelet and ask ourselves, what would Muhammad do? People are insulting you, O Prophet of God. You're being attacked. What would you do? And despite the wave of insults, I want to remind you, brothers and sisters, not to generalize. Yes, there are people out there who get a kick out of insulting others. But there are also good-hearted people. People who have sincerely and objectively studied the Prophet's biography and who have come to beautiful conclusions. Yes, sirree, brothers and sisters. And to give you a feel of what I'm talking about, I want to give you 3 quotes by well-respected non-Muslim personalities. 3 quotes that respond to the disturbing insults that are circulating out there. People are claiming that Muhammad was a ruthless dictator, a psychopath who brought oppression and darkness to the world, the prophet of doom. What does George Bernard Shaw have to say about that? George Bernard Shaw, the world-renowned Irish playwright and writer, the only person in history to have ever won both a Nobel Prize and an Oscar. What does he say? Listen. I have studied him, the wonderful man, and in my opinion, far from being an antichrist, he must be called the savior of humanity. He continues, I believe that if a man like him were to assume the dictatorship of the modern world, he would succeed in solving its problems in a way that would bring it much needed peace and happiness. Man, does that soothe the heart. God bless you, Sir George. Muhammad was a terrorist, they claim, a warmonger who spread his message by the sword, who killed innocent women and children. Listen to what Mahatma Gandhi, the father of modern India, says about that. I became more than ever convinced that it was not the sword that won a place for Islam in those days in the scheme of life. It was the rigid simplicity, the utter self-effacement of the Prophet, the scrupulous regard for pledges, his intense devotion to his friends and followers, his intrepidity, his fearlessness, his absolute trust in God and in his own mission. These, and not the sword, carried everything before them and surmounted every obstacle. And the list of baseless insults wouldn't be complete without a mention of the most recurring one of them all. And I must admit, brothers and sisters, it's going to hurt saying the following sentence, but I feel that I am obliged in order to make a point. Muhammad was a woman oppressor, a sex addict, a pedophile. Forgive me, O Prophet of God. And who better to answer this claim than Annie Besant, a British social reformer and women's rights activist? A feminist? Yes, a feminist, people! What does she say? He married the noble Khadija, the immortal Khadija, who, though much his senior in years, remained the sole empress of his heart till he was 50 years old. It is true that after her death he married other younger wives, but all these marriages were for affording protection against unbelievers or for alliances among the believers. They were political marriages and not profligate or licentious. Wander through Arabia and you will find that he is known as Al-Amin, the trustworthy. This is the noblest name that can be given to a man and implies that he was truth-telling, honorable, just, and upright. He was loved by children who clung around his knees, climbed up into his arms, and played with him. A man who is loved by children cannot be a bad man. Peace and blessings be upon you, O Prophet of God. Now the question we've all been waiting for. What would Muhammad do? And believe it or not, brothers and sisters, this phenomenon of insulting this mighty messenger of God is not new. No. It's been happening ever since he professed prophethood with his blessed lips. Ever since he claimed, I am a messenger from God. I have been sent as a warner to humankind. Ever since, he has been attacked in every possible way. And so his biography is filled with countless examples of such occurrences. But today, we're only going to talk about one of these stories. And this story takes place around the time of the conquest of Mecca, when the Prophet was strong and powerful, when he was at the height of his success. Here we go, brothers and sisters. The Prophet was in a gathering among his companions, when a Bedouin from the tribe of Bani Sulaim was hunting for food. Now the Bedouin had caught a large lizard, and he hid this live reptile inside his sleeve while on his way back to his family to kill it there and eat it. All of a sudden, he saw the large gathering and asked, "What is this?" And somebody replied, "This is the man who claims to be a prophet." So the Bedouin made his way through the gathering until he reached the Prophet of God and said to him, "By the gods of the Kaaba, there is no person in existence who is uglier than you. Damn, do I hate you, O Muhammad." Man, can you imagine, brothers and sisters, somebody talking like that to the Prophet of God? The Bedouin continues, "And if I wasn't going to be accused of being hasty, I would have jumped on you and killed you, and it would have brought not only joy to me, but to humanity as a whole. I would have done everybody a favor." How would you feel, brothers and sisters, if you were sitting there watching this man insult and humiliate the Prophet of God? How do you think the companions felt? Umar ibn al-Khattab, one of the Prophet's closest companions, he was enraged. He heard this and he couldn't take it. He jumped and said to the Prophet, "O Prophet of God, let me kill this man on the spot." Everybody was shocked. Everybody was bleeding with anger. What did Muhammad reply to Umar? What did the mercy to humankind say? "You are being insulted, O Prophet of God. People are drawing abusive cartoons of you and making disgraceful movies about you. How do you respond?"